Hi, I wanted to record a lecture for you so that you could get started working on your thesis statements. I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about a major metaphor or symbolism throughout the story because that could be incorporated into your essay. So I thought it's useful to kind of consider the fact that, and we've done this with other works where we've talked about the names of things and how they kind of carry a lot of weight or importance. And in this book, the title or the name of the ship, the Republic, is significant because we're looking at an early America and a US in its infancy. And so I think the message behind that for the Republic, if you look at the ship itself, it is unsafe. It is paid for by the financial interests of others. Nature rages against it. It seems unnatural. They call it in the book, he calls it a shrinking casket. Calhoun calls himself a wreck of the Republic, meaning he's the aftermath. And it's not yet a government made for the people and by the people and answerable to the people, which is, this one of our famous early senators proclaimed in 1830 regarding America. And obviously, this book is a statement against that and showing what was really happening to African American folks and Africans. The Almost God, on the other hand, represents something quite different, and I think you could see them as sort of polar models. Reality is not imposed from the outside, but revealed from the inside through outpicturing. And what I mean by that is when people, Tommy, Calhoun, Captain Falcon, go down and see the God, I know that's a confusing passage, but it is very clear that the God actually reflects whatever that character needs. And so they get visions and they see things about themselves, and that's a more important reality than the reality in which they're living. The second point, this is more connected, the religious aspect of this God is more connected to the idea of karma, and not to like a monotheistic God. It's more of a Buddhist idea. Also the tribe does not eat meat. They're nonviolent. They don't believe in kind of a hierarchy structure. The Almost God's also related to the self-reliance, as each person's accountable for the way they live their life. It's not by an external criteria like a religious doctrine or dogma. But they view autonomy, like independence from others and individualism, as a sort of hell. And so like when the Almaseri have mutiny on the ship via the character of Diamello, we see how it turns them into something evil, something not worthy for themselves. They view themselves that way. So those are two metaphors I think are really interesting. You could include them in your essay and think about them structurally. You don't have to, but it's just an option, and I thought it was an interesting one. So this is the prompt. The wording's a little different here than it is in another place, but I want you to use this. You're responding to this question: how does Calhoun accept, interrupt, or resist internalized oppression? You can focus on any aspect of those three parts. It's dynamic. It moves throughout this book. You can look at all three of them, or you can look at portions of them. Some other questions to consider: what were the negative messages he has internalized? Like, what was that internalized oppression? What has motivated him toward a change, right? What's helping him heal? Be sure to include examples from a variety of relationships or interactions. Now, when I say examples, I don't mean that all three of your paragraphs, your body paragraphs, are just like example 1, example 2, example 3. You have to have a point you're making about that internalized oppression in each of those paragraphs. And then you can use various characters and his interactions with them to make those points. So for the thesis statements, I want to show you kind of a guideline and then a couple of examples. The first one, the guidelines are on sort of the left here. It has to focus on Calhoun's internalized oppression, not just general internalized oppression. It should be worded as an argument. Narrow the focus without trying to list the 3 topics of the paragraph. I don't want to list thesis statement. Try to use a complex sentence structure. Try to make that thesis statement like rich in what it's covering. Also, try to use or options that you have, I should say, are you can have a contrasting subordinate clause, like start with although or while or even though. You might start with an independent clause and then add a subordinate clause afterwards. You might have more of an independent clause and just add an adverbial clause like where, who, or that, or which. And then you might also have a structure where it's like, if this is true, then this. And that would be another way you're creating an argument. So a couple of examples I want to give you. Here's the first one. This one is a contrasting subordinate clause. While Rutherford initially appears cavalier and pleasure-seeking, he struggles with internalized oppression from the traumas of slavery. So that's sort of like kind of a statement there, right? And then we add to it, therefore, it is only when he faces his early traumas aboard the Republic that he can be more authentic and grounded. So you're arguing here that he has to kind of address those early traumas in order to move forward with internalized oppression, to heal from it. The next one is an if-then structure, and I thought about the metaphor idea. If the Republic is a metaphor for a failed American state and the emissary God is a metaphor for humankind's true nature, then Rutherford's resistance of internalized oppression can only come from a destruction of the Republic and a transformation with the emissary God. So this would kind of argue that the Republic itself, if it is truly a metaphor for the failed state, that it has to be destroyed, that it has to fall apart in the story, and that it's inevitable that for Rutherford to have a transformation, he needs to see the emissary God. So I think that's another option that you could use, something like that. So these are just a few ideas. I'd love you to go into the discussion area, try to create and craft your own thesis statement. Put one in there. If you have an idea for a plan that goes with it, that's fine, but you don't have to. Just mainly the thesis statement. And then I'll hook this video lecture into the final discussion so you can see it there. Okay? Let me know if you have any questions.